Communist Party. Joining me now with more is Mike Gonzalez, Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Mike, welcome to Washington Watch.
Tony, thanks a lot for having me on.
So BLM is in retreat in terms of its Marxist origins, trying to cover their trails.
Yeah, no, they finally realizing. I mean, so Americans, are good people. They have good intentions. They were horrified by the manner in which George Floyd died, and they wanted to demonstrate that outrage. But I think people are beginning to understand that, as opposed to the slogan itself or to the sentiment, the organizations, Black Lives Matter, are, as you said, were founded by Marxists, committed Marxists who were trained in Marxist tactics. They used to speak openly about this, but now that they're realizing that it's not selling so well in America, they're beginning to do the Marxist thing, which is to airbrush history out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like a cat in a sandbox trying to cover their tracks there. But there's something else they're going to have to start covering up, because Alicia Garza, who is connected, one of the co-founders, she's behind the advocacy group Black Future Lab, which is backed by the Chinese Progressive Association, which has connections to the Chinese Communist Party. So, I mean, there's even more connections that they're going to have to explain to the American people. Well,
Alicia Garza is best thought of as sitting atop a worldwide revolutionary empire. She's got many ventures. One of them is a Black Futures Lab, as you said. And if you go to the donate button, you see that it is a fiscally sponsored project of the Chinese Progressive Association of San Francisco. BLM likes to have these arrangements because it affords them flexibility in not disclosing how they spend their money, in what activities they spend their money. The Chinese Progressive Association of San Francisco has been sympathetic to the People's Republic of China from the beginning, has gone to bat for China. For example, this year, back in March, it sent a letter to the Biden campaign saying, "Look, we back you. We want you to defeat President Trump, but however, we don't want you to engage at all in any China bashing, quote unquote." These are their words. And if you do criticize China, this could hurt you at the polls. This is what the letter said to the Biden campaign. The Chinese Progressive Association also, in 2017, created a group that sought to curb the Department of Justice investigations of Chinese spying, spying by China, right? Because we have to draw a bright distinction here, Tony, between the Chinese government and Chinese Americans who are Americans.
Right.
Americans, just like you and me. And in fact, these organizations, these lefty organizations, do not serve the interests of Chinese Americans because they support affirmative action, and one of the greatest sufferers of affirmative action are Chinese Americans, as you well know. So what we can say is that you have this outfit created at the height of the Cultural Revolution, 1972, right in the middle of the Cultural Revolution, Maoist from the beginning, seeking to bring revolution to America, and they they have had pro-China, they have done pro-China things, and they are the fiscal sponsors of one of the ventures of Alicia Garza, one of the BLM ventures.
Mike, you point this out in a piece for the Daily Signal that if this were an organization here in the United States connected to Vladimir Putin and Russia, the media would be all over it. But they've said nothing about this connection between the Communist China and BLM.
The media not only says nothing and doesn't bother to vet these organizations. By the way, a paper came out last week that links 95% of the riots to BLM, to the organizations. 95% of the riots to Black Lives Matter, to the organizations. Look, the media does not just vet and do investigations. The media covers for them.
Yeah.
The media says they're not Marxist. PolitiFact had a laughable, fact check saying, no, they're not Marxist. 80% of the majority of the people turning out to protest do not associate themselves with Marxist views. And that is actually something I agree with. I think people who are in the streets demonstrating are not probably, they may be Marxists, many young people today are Marxists, but I would imagine the vast majority are not. But what I do say also is that they're being manipulated. The protests are being manipulated by groups created by Marxists, by people who are anti-capitalist. And now the fact that they're purging their website from language, I think they took out every reference to the word comrade. Comrade obviously is a very Russian, very Soviet word, a very communist word. It was a wink to the left, but I think as people begin to see it and realize what was going on, they also excised it from their website.
And that's how the communists, the Marxists work. They try to use the cover of legitimate issues to create dissension in other countries, which is what they're doing here. Mike, we're out of time, but I'm going to revisit this issue later. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tony.
Folks, don't go away.